Chronic back pain was one of the worst things that ever happened to me, but funny enough, it was also one of the best things that ever happened to me. The reason for this is because I actually learned quite a lot of things from chronic back pain, from trying to deal with it, from struggling with it, from accepting it, and from finally resolving it. It was a long, really painful journey. It took me 10 years to completely heal. But during that entire process, if I may, I think I became like a much better person. I learned not just skills that are, first of all, good for healing and health, but they also translate into other areas of life, a lot other areas of life. But at the same time, I think just by addressing a lot of problems that are usually directly related to chronic back pain, even though in many unexpected ways, but still directly related. And by working on those issues, I don't want to like say things like this, but I think this is actually how you kind of level up and become a better person by kind of like facing difficult issues from your childhood, from your past, things that maybe they've been wronged, maybe you've been wronged, or maybe you've caused wrong to other people. And facing all of these issues, I think definitely makes you a better person. So in this video, I'll just cover the few most important things I think I learned from suffering from a lot of chronic back pain. This is just a good way of looking at things, I believe. You can choose to be a victim about anything. You can choose to see only the negative sides. And when it comes to chronic back pain, a lot of you already know it's constantly there. It's all the time. It's stuck in your body. It's really like torturing you, tormenting you. It's really easy to only see the downsides and be a victim. But at the same time, if you work on addressing it, on accepting it, on solving it, you actually adopt a different mindset and you learn a thing or two, and you become probably a little bit more grateful for the things that you've learned. First of all, one of the most immediate things I learned right after my first back pain attack was to be deeply appreciative of my body and of my health in general. Before my back pain attack, I was in my early 20s. I had never really had any serious health problem, and at what I believe as a young age, I had a really difficult challenge. It was the most pain I've ever felt in my life. It was even unusual, I think. I don't even think a lot of people will hurt that much, but maybe you will. I hope you don't. But once I went through the pain, I felt and experienced that pain, I quickly understood what I used to have. I quickly understood what I had lost in just an instant. And that made me, first of all, like obviously for years, I was totally resentful, totally miserable about the whole thing. But then slowly I started realizing, okay, I used to have something that I completely took for granted, but it was one of the most, honestly, like probably the most important thing when it comes to you yourself alone. Nothing is more important than your health. And you only realize that once you lose it or when you risk losing it. And the reason why I actually became so appreciative of this is precisely because I struggled with this problem for such a long time. I mean, had I had like maybe like a short scare, maybe some different illness or injury that maybe goes away in a few days or is not that intense, I don't think I would have developed the level of appreciating and gratefulness for my health, even though it was at the time kind of like dwindling. But this completely changed my perspective, and for quite the longest time, I was even jealous of people who were just walking down the street. I was so becoming so miserable and bitter that whenever I saw like a person like with a good posture just happily walking down the street, I was like so envious of them. And I even thought like, look at that person, like they don't even know what they have. They have their perfect health. Their body doesn't hurt all of the time. And this made me really miserable at first. But slowly I started to realize like, okay, especially like when I started to improve a little bit, I realized, okay, maybe I'm gonna get to some sort of a point that's similar to what I had before. Maybe I'm gonna feel better and healthier again. And that made me completely appreciate my health in general. And that brings with itself gratitude. I think that's another skill that I kind of really developed mostly through pain. And I think there may be other ways to develop gratitude, but I think that this was probably what I needed at the time, and maybe it's one of the best ways to develop it. Like once you start losing the things you took for granted, you'll probably become grateful if you have a chance at regaining them. But then a funny thing happens. You also start thinking of what are some things that maybe I still have them right now, that I still haven't lost them, and you become immediately grateful for them. And gratitude is, I think, one of the most critical skills of our time. I think the people that kind of discovered that they should live their life in this way and be full of gratitude, even if you don't have much in terms of, relative terms, maybe compared to other people, even if your situation seems like your life has, it doesn't have a lot of abundance, there's still absolute values and things that you have, like your health, your ability to move freely, your ability to, live life with all of your, hopefully with all of your organs, limbs, abilities. Like if you're healthy, really there's like nothing much else you can want from from life. And even if you don't have those things, I've seen people be so grateful even after like losing some of their functions, and I think that's the right way to go. In fact, I'm pretty sure like everything else is just victimhood, and it's gonna lead you down a path towards a lot of misery. Of course, throughout all of that pain, first of all, I kind of started getting used to it a little bit, which I think it's a mixed bag. Maybe it's not such a great thing. But in any case, I've developed a lot of resiliency. I learned how to be in pain, in a lot of pain, constantly for long periods of time, without end, seemingly, and to be a little bit acceptive of that, to not complain, to not really catastrophize the situation, and that that skill of acceptance really makes you kind of tougher in a way. You shouldn't be in pain, you shouldn't go through pain, especially when it's not necessary, but this is one of the things that you can extract from it, and you can actually realize and learn things about yourself, especially that you can be really resilient and really tough. You have this in you. Like it's impossible to struggle with pain for such a long period of time and not learn this about yourself. I mean, I guess like again, you can choose a different direction and you can choose to see yourself as constantly being weak, but that's probably the wrong choice. And I think if you choose that, you're kind of reinforcing this idea of pain. And chronic back pain has a really strong psychological component to it, so your thoughts have a really direct impact on your back pain, even though for a lot of people this may seem unbelievable. But I learned this through a lot of pain. It took me a lot of pain to understand this, and nobody can convince me this is not true, especially given how a lot of people are actually healing by using the same approaches and tactics I recommend. But also, chronic back pain has a physical component to it. Some people kind of want to deny this one as well. I think these are like kind of like opposing camps that should really come together. In any way, in any case, my opinion is there is a physical component to it, and the best way to actually address it is to strengthen your body. And this is another skill that I actually learned because of back pain. For the longest time, I actually believed that my back pain was because of something I did at the gym. There is probably a small probability that may have been a low part of the reason, but I think knowing what I know now, I think that was not the case at all. In any case, it was really difficult for me to kind of get back to the gym. I was really scared of doing that. But once I went back there and I saw how much strengthening your body can have, first of all, like not just the physical, but also like a psychological effect on you. And of course, making you healthier, stronger, more powerful, being able to move with more freedom. That has been one of the most critical, like practical skills I learned, mostly because of back pain. I think if I didn't injure my back, I would have never really learned how to, I would have never become like stronger, more fit, more active, healthier. I think none of them that would have happened. And also, somewhat related to this, I also learned a lot about nutrition. I was practically kind of, once I've discovered that nutrition has a direct impact on chronic back pain because of the inflammation, and a lot of the foods we eat actually raise inflammation, which is horrible for chronic back pain. Once I figured this out, I was practically forced to do a lot of testing and experimenting and seeing which foods agree with me and maybe cause my back pain to not flare up or even diminish, and which foods to actually raise my inflammation and my back pain. And I had to do like a lot of trial and error here, but I arrived at a diet that works perfectly for me. I think it's gonna work for most of you. It's essentially like a kind of like a clean, lower carb diet. You're mostly gonna, if you, to put it simply, like, and I talk a lot about this in other videos, but if you just eat, let's just say maybe some eggs in the morning, maybe some kefir or yogurt, and then you have maybe like maybe you have some vegetables as well. Maybe you eat. I actually like nuts, like hazelnuts and cashews and walnuts and almonds. I think they're actually really underestimated today. And then you maybe have some form of meat for dinner, vegetables. Red meat is fine. Seafood, fish is fine. Um, Chicken, white meat, also great. Like maybe you can kind of alternate between them every day. If you kind of eat like this, maybe optionally add a little bit of fruit, but you don't have to overdo it. So this is like a good low carb approach that I found to be perfect for my inflammation levels and for my chronic back pain. Sometimes I have like digestion problems. I also have like a vitiligo issue, which is like a skin condition where it's also like a chronic autoimmune condition. And I think all of these are related. I've noticed that when my vitiligo like patches flare up and my digestion is also really poor at the time, and my back hurts more as well. So I think all of this comes down to nutrition. And I had to learn all of this mostly because I was struggling with a lot of back pain. And by the way, it's still relating to nutrition. Uh, During the time when I was the most overweight I've ever been in my life, I was probably 45 or maybe 50% body fat. My back was also hurting me the most. And that also kind of forced me to lose a lot of weight, which is something that I think a lot of people that struggle with chronic back pain should also definitely do. I don't think if you struggle with back pain, you can completely get rid of it unless you get down to at least 20%, at most, sorry, 20% of body fat for guys and 30% for girls. I think those are like the minimum levels, or sorry, the maximum levels of body fat percentage allowed. If you go above that, your body first of all is heavier and it puts more pressure on your spine, and the physical aspect is compromised, but at the same time your inflammation levels are risen, they're higher, and that also makes your back pain worse. Plus you feel worse usually, and the psychological and emotional part is also kind of pulling you down. Another thing that I learned because of back pain, and I was kind of forced to learn it as well, was this whole, like, let's just say, psychological skill of, first of all, identifying issues that are maybe causing you psychological or emotional distress, really delving deep into them, really being introspective and learning things about yourself and your character, and maybe even like breaking some false beliefs that you have about yourself, discovering like weaknesses in your mindset, in your belief structure, and like all of your psychological makeup. And once you discover them, like working on completely obliterating and releasing them. And this was probably the hardest thing that I had to do. And it was really, it's really painful when you revisit a lot of issues, a lot of pain from the past. People call this trauma. I'm not exactly too happy with that wording because at least when I was growing up, like trauma was, people seeing their friends from the army like getting blown up in explosions. That was trauma for people. When your parents are mean to you, it's not exactly the same, but it can have really destructive effects. This is definitely true. I'm not trying to like downplay this. I think working on the stuff from your childhood, like stuff that has been bothering you, it's really going to have a deep, profound, and often immediate effect on chronic back pain, first of all. And of course, you get the added bonus of your psychology, your mindset, your emotions are handled. They're much, you're kind of like getting rid of this baggage is one of the best things you can do, especially if you've never done work of this type. And I think this combined approach of, first of all, identifying the issues, I think journaling is actually excellent for this, and that's what I recommend. And then resolving them, like releasing them through bodily experiences and practices. I think this works even better than therapy, I believe, because a lot of therapy, they kind of like work on maybe identifying the issues mostly, but they don't really do a lot to release them finally and to let them go. And they don't really equip people to be able to kind of handle their own psychological needs in the future. And this is all done with honestly the skills that I recommend and that help me address most of my chronic back pain. And one final skill that I learned essentially through back pain, and this is, by the way, why I end my videos like this, is the skill of bravery. In my mind, at least, if I could overcome this problem, if I didn't give up, if I didn't completely give myself surrender to bitterness and misery and resentment and even like jealousy and envy and hatred and all of these like negative emotions, if I could get out of that, I think I'm gonna be fine. I don't want to say no matter what life throws at me, but I can definitely see how I'm prepared for more challenges now. And if you can get out of this, if you can resolve horrible chronic back pain, I think you're ready for, you can pretty much tackle anything. Maybe not exactly anything, but you are a stronger person. You are a better person, and you are brave. You learn the skill of bravery. It's not the skill of like not being afraid, maybe, but it's still the skill of acting in the face of danger, pain, fear, all of that. Check out my free book. Link to it is in the pinned comment or description. You're going to learn a lot more. We're going to go into more detail there. Check out my course if you want to completely resolve chronic back pain by following a proven daily step-by-step plan, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. I think videos like this can really help a lot of people deal with such a pesky, like such a weird problem like chronic back pain. I will see you in another video, and as I said, be brave.